Welcome, everybody. My name is Stephanie Luce. I'm a professor at the School of I'm a professor at the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, and I'm honored to welcome you here this morning for our conference on labor and democracy. I want to give a big thanks to our planning committee, to all the staff here at CUNY, our co-sponsor Cornell, and to all of you for coming to this really important topic that is really could not be more crucial and timely. We're here today to talk about labor and democracy. And of course, this country has never had a real democracy. It was founded in violence, it was founded in exclusion, but many of us fought hard to win rights, to win the end of Jim Crow, to win the right to unionize, to win the right to vote. And the more we fought, the more we won, but the other side has been fighting back. And they're trying to take back from us everything that we won. And this is a time where we have to say we have to defend not only what we've already won, but we have to expand democracy and make it real for the first time. We need to build a true multiracial democracy that is internationalist and inclusive. And so we're here to talk about the ways in which, oh yeah. All right. And as we know, there are many elements now of a coalition, an authoritarian coalition in this country and around the world that sees democracy itself as a threat. Democracy to them is a barrier to them earning their profits, their billions. It's a threat to those who have a white supremacist or a Christian nationalist view that says democracy doesn't belong to anyone. And it's a threat to those who think that their agenda is not popular enough. They couldn't win if we all actually had true democracy. And so we're here to challenge that and to fight back and to come back bigger and stronger. Now, unions historically have played a positive role, not in all cases, but in many cases around the world in defending and expanding democracy, whether it's winning the right to vote or the rights to engage in workplace organizing or to overthrowing authoritarian regimes in South Africa, in Korea, and Brazil, and Indonesia. And we have a lot to learn from what unions have done and working class organizations have done around the world. So today and tomorrow, we're going to be hearing from scholars who are studying these lessons, what we can learn from other countries, and what we can learn from the past, or what we can learn from new organizing experiences or experience in education. Now, we know that unions are under siege, so the ability to fight back is limited. Many people are just in a very defensive battle. It's not just the authoritarians that hate worker rights. We've been fighting for worker rights for a very long time. But the fight has intensified, and unions have been in the crosshairs. Now, some unions have been, retreating and saying, I'm going to play it safe. We don't want to stick our head up and get into danger. Some unions are lured by a very nationalist solution and saying maybe turning inwards will bring us jobs and save us. But we know those solutions, nationalist solutions, almost always lead to, if not a trade war, then actual war. Nationalist solutions won't save us. We need to have an internationalist approach to rebuilding a true multiracial democracy. And some unions right now are really struggling just internally. Their own members are divided politically. They've lost the capacity to have internal conversation and debate, and healthy debate. Unions should be a space for healthy debate, but many union leaders are struggling on how to make that possible in this very polarized time. So we are thrilled to have you all here for these lessons we're going to be talking about today. We're going to first, focus on some of the research and what the research is telling us, and then we're going to pivot to thinking about how that informs our strategy. How are we going to rebuild this movement in a way that fights the authoritarian threats, but also advances a strong multiracial working class agenda? It was with very great sadness that 3 of our speakers for this conference had to withdraw due to security concerns. They are international scholars who live in the United States who have been advised not to speak publicly and not to travel. So the stakes of what we're talking about are real. They're impacting us now. We know that the threats to us on all fronts are closing in. And so without saying their names, I wanted to acknowledge them as here in the room with us today and respecting the work that they're doing. So Now I'd like to turn it over. We are very honored to open our conference with Becky Pringle, who's the president of the National Education Association. The NEA is the largest union in the country, and President Pringle assumed leadership in 2020 in the heart of a very challenging times in the midst of the pandemic. And you can read the full bios of all of our speakers through the code in the program. But what I want to highlight here is, the leadership that President Pringle has really been showing us since she came into office. Several years ago, my colleague Bob Master and I began doing interviews with unions, thinking about how they're addressing this challenge of growing authoritarianism and the threats to democracy. Many of the union leaders were not really paying attention or saying, that doesn't affect us, we're in a blue state, that's not really an issue. The NEA has members in almost every state, and many of their members live in, so-called red trifecta states who have been experiencing assaults for a long time. And of course, public school teachers and students have been experiencing assaults for a long time. President Pringle was one of the union leaders that was talking about democracy along with, racial and social justice and full democracy for many years now. And we knew that we would be truly honored to have her open our conference here today to really talk about the threats that our workers and students are facing, but also what unions can do proactively to really defend and expand our rights. And so thank you so much for joining us, and I turn it over to President Pringle.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for setting the stage. When you hear that 3 speakers can't come, in the United States of America, let me say that again. Did that sink in with you? 3 speakers can't come because they are under significant, real threat. And as you were saying that, Stephanie, we're in the throes of, we have a national convention every year. 7,000 teachers and educators come together to set the policy of the NEA. And we understand the role we play in the world. I happen to be a vice president of our international union, Education International. And so we always invite international guests to come and be with us and teach us and learn from us. And this year, because they are on the list of countries that cannot get into the United States, it's shocking, but it makes it very real what we are facing in this moment. I am so honored to be here, and I want to thank the School of Labor for putting this series together. I was taking a look at my brochure, and I was getting ready to send a text to my people, Stephanie, and say, just cancel the rest of this stuff I got to do. I just need to stay. I need to stay and be with my community here, and I need to learn with them and ask tough questions of ourselves. We'll see how that works out. I try to pretend I'm in charge of my life, not so much so. Stephanie is right. She introduced me. We are the largest labor union in this country. We do have members in every single state, and in fact, in every congressional district. Every one in 100 people in these United States is an NEA member. Now think about that. Think about that. We not only represent people within the borders of the United States, but we represent the people who teach our servicemen and women in our DODEA schools, our Department of Defense schools, who are literally under attack as I stand here in front of you today. Because Donald Trump has direct access to them, stripping them of the collective bargaining rights, threatening them if they even meet. It's quite serious what's happening with our members in schools, here, stateside schools, and schools around the country. And so it is very real for our teachers and bus drivers, paraprofessionals, nurses, those who are faculty and staff in higher education. We also have an incredibly active group of retired educators, and we have those aspiring educators. believe it or not, Stephanie, there are still people, students, who are choosing to go into education. Now, we have to make sure they continue to do that and they stay, and that's a whole other conversation. But that gives you a flavor of the people who we represent. Let us rise up with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these challenging yet powerful days to take this opportunity to, as Stephanie said, make America a better nation. A better nation. Dr. King's words are instructive in all the ways we must examine our unique role as labor unions, and especially for us as an education labor union, as we mount and lead the fight to slow, but ultimately to stop this country's march toward authoritarianism. We understand this rising tide of right-wing authoritarianism it's not normal. Now, I need to tell you, I've been on this earth for a minute. 7 decades to be exact. And I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm from Philly, so go Birds, but you gotta, inside words, Becky, outside words. I've seen a lot. But this is not normal politics, is it? It's not just a pendulum shift. It's not just a backlash. We experience those when we have progress. This is a coordinated power grab by billionaires and extremists. They are mercilessly targeting and scapegoating the vulnerable. They are inciting the kind of fear we talked about just a few minutes ago. They're trying to silence dissent and weaponize government power to punish opposition. The ICE raids are deliberately designed to intimidate not just our immigrant families and children, but those who are helping and supporting them. They're attempting to enter schools under false pretenses, whitewashing and rewriting history. I know that you were paying attention to the news yesterday when the Oklahoma standards were released, and teachers are now required to teach that the 2020 election was stolen. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I can't make this shit up. I can't. It gets worse. And remove from their curriculum any mention of George Floyd and the Black Lives Movement. This is what we're facing in education. They are banning books, of course, you know that, but banning the honest, inclusive education that we know our students need. We are witnessing a deliberate campaign to divide and distract, to blame immigrants and educators and federal workers, Black, brown, indigenous, LGBTQ plus people, especially our trans youth and educators, for systemic issues that are baked into this country's soil. So, you might ask yourself, why? Why are Donald Trump and his cronies attacking public education? Why? Well, you and I know why. Because they know that public education is where democracy actually takes root and is allowed, if it can, to grow and flourish. Because critical thinking and collaborative problem solving and civic understanding are all threats to an authoritarian rule. They know that if they can control what we know, they can control what we believe and what we do. As a history teacher, my dad would make me and my two sisters listen to him talk about history. I hated it. I was a science teacher. I didn't want to hear it, but he was from that, spare the rod, spoil the child generation. Anyone know what I mean? Yeah. So when he said, you're going to listen, you're going to listen. So sit down. That's what's going to happen. And he would talk about the history of this nation and of the world. He was quite a scholar. He would take us to Charlottesville, Virginia, where my ancestors were enslaved. And he would tell us stories about people who looked like us and people who didn't. He wanted us to understand that when you follow the trajectories of civilizations and empires, of governments and societies throughout history, you can watch their rise and you can watch their fall. One of the things he was adamant about making sure we learned is this. It didn't matter which society you were talking about. When you started to see those in power and in positions of authority trying to diminish the opportunities for its citizens to learn, that was the warning sign for the ascent of fascist regimes and the descent of democracy and rights. Public education is the foundation of this or any democracy. So we must understand what we are witnessing. As those in positions of power are doing everything to undermine public education, that education that is free and universal to all, they are trying to privatize and voucherize to drain public schools of their resources and then try to portray it as something that's failing when they are the ones who have failed forever to invest in our public schools. Forever. But they're not stopping there. They're demeaning and demoralizing education professionals who have dedicated their lives to educating this new nation's students. They are marginalizing and mischaracterizing and othering our students. Make no mistake. Opponents of public education are doing everything they can to remove those things that could block their unfettered march toward power. They are preparing to put policies and people in place that will not make it possible for us to reverse this trend for generations. It starts by not allowing our students to have access to knowing the full breadth of their history. It starts by shrinking curriculum. It starts by fueling the inequities that exist in every single social system in this country. Donald Trump and Elon Musk know that too. So their work is focused on trying to destroy public education through voucherizing and privatizing and demonizing and draining money from our public systems, all to line the pockets of already obscenely rich billionaires. Their firing of half of the staff of the Department of Education and Trump's executive order to dismantle that department completely is going to hurt students everywhere. Class sizes will soar, arts, music, and after-school programs will be diminished, job training programs will be eliminated. Already the high cost of going on to college, we know will put college education further out of reach for most families. Children with disabilities will be left without desperately needed special education services especially when you have a Secretary of Education who doesn't even know what IDEA stands for. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is the singularly largest program to help our students with disabilities and those who teach them. This is what we're dealing with. And the civil rights of our LGBTQ plus students are already being eroded. And as you very well know, they are targeting higher education as a way to suppress dissent and academic freedoms. They're also doubling down on their attacks on working people and the unions that represent them. In March, Trump signed an executive order effectively shuttering the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. That's the department agency that provides expert mediation to help unions and their management counterparts, both in the private and public sectors, to reach agreements through collective bargaining. And he signed another order to end collective bargaining for 50,000 airport screeners. Is that making us safer? Is it? No. That order was followed by one that eliminated union contracts and prohibited bargaining for more than 1 million federal employees. In addition to stripping collective bargaining protections, they're defunding the National Labor Relations Board, pushing legislation that undermines unions that represent public employees, and empowering anti-union, anti-worker governors and state legislatures to ban payroll deductions for union dues. They know that if they weaken our unions, they can weaken our democracy. But let me tell you something. We're fighting back. We're fighting back. We are fighting back. The latest attempt to threaten unions' abilities to have collective bargaining was stopped in its tracks. By the David and Goliath fight, our union took on in, that's right, the state of Utah. Utah! Joined by other unions and partners after the legislature had passed a bill stripping workers of their collective bargaining rights, we took the fight to the people, collecting twice the number of signatures that were required to repeal this union-busting law. Even their governor had to congratulate the Utah Education Association and admit this was impressive. It's called organized labor for a reason. Their members are well organized. Yes, we are. So just yesterday, the Utah Lieutenant Governor, I don't recall seeing this before, but he actually issued a temporary stay on the law that had already been passed because it so exceeded the number of signatures needed to put it on the ballot. Now, what I want to point out is one of the most powerful parts of this win was the model of how we built this campaign. Labor solidarity. The professional firefighters of Utah turned down a carve-out in the legislation to stay in solidarity with their labor siblings. The United Food and Commercial Workers sent 5 staff every single week to work full-time on the campaign, with 13 unions sending more than 70 workers to help, from the United Mine Workers to the Communication Workers of America. Utah unions sent a clear message. Solidarity is a verb. It is a verb. It is a verb. And in the courts, we're working in solidarity too. You've seen the attorneys generals, including this state of New York. How badass is she? Just saying. Civil rights organizations and unions have filed hundreds of suits, and we're one of them. The NEA, alongside the NAACP, filed suit challenging the administration's ongoing efforts to harm our kids through the dismantling of the Department of Education. And we didn't stop there. NEA, with the support of the ACLU, filed another lawsuit challenging the director of the WWE czar, Linda McMahon, and their End DEI portal. Now, if you don't know about this, it was a portal they set up to report educators for teaching about diversity, equity, and inclusion, to turn them in. All of that, combined with threatening federal funding cuts to education institutions engaging in any diversity, equity, inclusion in any aspect of their work. Well, last week, we won an injunction. We stopped them from forcing school districts all over this country to sign a certification, which is what they did, and send it back in 10 days, that they would have nothing to do with diversity in their schools. We stopped them from enforcing it in every school district, and this is what the judge wrote. From enforcement in every school district, college, or university where an NEA member is employed. Now, we were not alone. We were joined by the AFT and the NAACP filed another lawsuit as well. These three suits have temporarily, and I do emphasize that, we don't know who's going to be following laws, but has temporarily allowed our school districts to continue to do the work they need to do. From the Trump administration trying to snatch U.S. citizenship from children born here, to their attempt to allow religious charter schools to access public tax dollars, we are using our collective power and resources to litigate and to win. But I need to tell you, litigation is just one tool. We know to effectively fight this administration's multi-pronged attack, we have to have a multi-pronged strategy. And that strategy has to be to communicate, and it has to be to organize, and it has to be to mobilize, and it has to be to legislate, and you better believe it has to be to elect. And we're not fighting alone. I hope all of you joined us April 5th when you saw millions of people all around the world, right? They were holding hands-off signs in languages I certainly didn't understand. They were standing up with us, and just last week, our NEA members and union members stood with tens of thousands of other workers from North Carolina to Ohio in May Day demonstrations. Those were born out of the commemoration of the 1886 Haymarket riot in Chicago. And you know that May Day serves as a reminder to all working people around the world that we are facing a common struggle, but we are still in the majority. And we just have to show up knowing that. And what did we have just this last week? We had Exhibit A and we had Exhibit B. Oh, Canada. With wins in Canada and Australia. And guess what? I think it was because of the video I made telling the people of Australia, don't let Donald Trump come to a neighborhood near you. I'm pretty sure that's what it was all about. But my point is this, that we know that happened because people are watching us, right? They came from huge deficits to win because they're watching us. And they are saying, no, don't bring that to our shores. Together, we are sending this message to the billionaire class. You will not deter us. You will not divide us. You will not silence us. Together, we will stand against anyone who seeks to limit our students' right to learn. who seeks to limit our right to fair wages, who seeks to crush the benefits of our families, to weaken our unions or destroy the dreams and opportunities for working people. We will beat back those money-grubbing privateers who want to control our public schools, higher education, and not just that. Our postal service, Medicare, and the retirement safety net that workers have earned Social Security. Now, I'm not going to stand up and say to you that we are not living in painfully regressive times. And many of us are feeling demoralized and certainly angry, where many education advocates and activists all over the country worry that the fight has already been lost. What author and expert on the U.S. far right and authoritarianism and threats to democracy, Tarso Ramos, describes as an authoritarian breakthrough, a fundamental shift in power that can't easily be undone. Now he believes that we're not there yet, but we are dangerously close. So we have to recognize the tools of authoritarianism. Division and distrust and distraction and despair, they count on to erode our will to resist. There's no mistaking that our country is facing an existential threat orchestrated by an administration that is on a crusade to vilify treasured American values. That's why you don't hear me say DEI. I need you to say the words. Say the words. Diversity. That's the strength of this country. It's the strength of this country. Equity. All that means that for us is that every student has what they need when they need it. Inclusion. That means that we have both the mirrors so we can see ourselves and the windows so we can see others. And inclusion and access. All that means is that our most vulnerable students have what they need to live into their brilliance. Say the words. Say them. We know that this administration is on a crusade against that. A crusade against the freedom of speech and an impartial justice system, an opportunity for everyone, not just the wealthy few. They want us to be overwhelmed, and they want us to be exhausted and scared. But unions were built for this moment. We were built for this moment. And we must remember that as we build and scale a movement that it is not only based in resistance and in refusal. And this is important. We can't just do that. We can't go back. You know, I always check people when they say that. Go back. Back wasn't so good for some of us. Just saying. Can't go back. Okay? We can't just fight against. We have to fight forward. So we have to focus on renewal and a renaissance. Activism is a moral posture, a steady state that propels you forward from one hard thing to the next. Believing that you can do something to make things better, you do something. You assume responsibility for the privilege of your abilities. You reach beyond yourself in your imagination and in your wish for understanding and for change. You do not turn away. June Jordan, a Jamaican-American writer who spent her life using her voice to create a vision of liberation, captures the essence of activism in her poem. Don't turn away from your professional responsibility and moral obligation to make sure that every student is seen and valued for the beautiful human they are. Don't turn away from your commitment to racial and social justice. Don't turn away. You can't turn away from fighting to make real the poetry in our U.S. Constitution. We the people, we the people, we the people, all of us deserve that right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice. We can't turn away because our babies, I need you to hear me, our babies are watching. They are watching. And they are depending on us to be worthy of them. Brothers and sisters, don't turn away. Stand in your power, and we will win. Thank you so very much for all you do every day for our students, for workers in this country, for our communities, for our values, for our democracy. Thank you.